Boy, you ready for this one. The black sheep of the AC franchise. The game that had the most boring protagonist. The game that takes a fifth of its runtime to start. The game that did not deserve all the hate it got.
Maybe we should have. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Better to start at the beginning, with the abduction of Desmond Miles. This boy had no ambition, no direction, no plans for the future. What he did have was a heritage.
You know I love me some good use of score. Overlaying Desmond right now is that beautiful theme from Revelations. These somber strings. The theme that ushered in the end of Ezio's story and now being used for Desmond's last arc.
This boy had no ambition, no direction, no plans for the future.
Well, I can completely understand why Desmond and Miles don't get along now.
You know them as Abstergo Industries. We know them as the Templars.
I mean, who's playing this game without having played at least the Ezio trilogy? For those that haven't, this is a nice quick tale from Daddy catching us up. And for those who had, we are reminded what all this modern day stuff has been leading up to. Anyone remember being a kid trying desperately to find a hoodie like Desmond's here?
Ominous date fast approaches, December 21st, 2012.
They really went all in with the end of the Mayan calendar doomsday prediction. Some people think it's silly, but honestly, I think it's really fun, and what better way to raise the stakes for the end of a trilogy? And if the calendar was real, Ubisoft was really playing it close, having an AC game come out every year and timing 3 to come out before the date. And if it did happen and some of us survived, would Ubi be held responsible for not trying to warn us better? Instead of just making a game out of it?
Armed with the knowledge of Altair and the abilities of Ezio, he holds in his hands the apple of Eden.
You can't tell me, no matter what your opinions are on Assassin's Creed, that you weren't hyped to see this story through after that. The date there is one day after the actual release of Assassin's Creed 3. With the new engine, Desmond definitely got a facelift. For the better, I'd say. But it is a little disappointing that his more angular features make him look less like Ezio and Altair. He still looks great though.
In another moment, down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again.
Ubisoft is going through a big Alice in Wonderland phase between this and the all of Far Cry 3. I remember being 12 playing this game on release, and being able to slide down a hill blew my mind for an Assassin's Creed game. We take a lot of this stuff for granted nowadays in gaming, and I think we should remind ourselves about little moments like these. Am I simped for music? Absolutely. The theme for the precursors is such a badass track to open this temple up onto. And that reminds me, this is the only Assassin's Creed game right next to Black Flag after Ezio's trilogy to not have a remix of Ezio's Family. And for as much as I love that song, I really appreciate AC3 letting Ezio's story rest and move on from him with what I believe to be grace.
Here we go again.
Speaking to the player's excitement to get back to the ancestor stuff, and at this point, Desmond can't even be bothered and surprised by stuff like this anymore.
We picked up a software update for the Animus.
Every time, I love these diegetic reasons for UI changes and updates to the game engine. And the new Anvil engine blew me away back in 2012. It was a night and day difference between Revelations and 3. Parkour had never felt this fluid, with almost none of the weird stop-start from previous games, and finally being able to vault over high-waist objects. And also trees. We can climb trees. These all sound like minor updates to the free running, but altogether it makes for a much more satisfying experience. It's not as beautiful and fluid as Unity, but it's close. And to help me win this game, the Assassin's Creed hater himself, that boy Aqua, has come in to help me make sure I give the most divisive AC game its fair shake. Let him know what you got.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mr. GamingWins. I'm really excited to look at this game through a more positive lens. For starters, the transition from the sanitized white Animus tutorial as Desmond to the opera as Haytham was smooth and arguably one of the best we've seen thus far.
Gay's best work by far.
The work that is going on is The Beggar's Opera, which is a piece that satirized Italian opera at the time. It was written more as an anti-opera than what you traditionally see at the time. And you could relate this to how starkly different Connor is to Ezio, not a ladies' man's silver tongue. A big focus of the opera is corruption that permeates all levels of society, which perfectly slots in with the Patriots' struggle against King George, and on a grander scale, the Templars' plan for order.
Have you seen it before?
Once. My father brought me here as a child.
Edward Kenway shadowing. It seems making out in the theater is something that is in our nature. I say as I've never made out in the theater.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry.
The first steps to making Haytham a fan favorite. There are hints here and there about Haytham being a Templar, such as the dark boom here showing that this isn't a triumphant moment. Not having him give an assassin eulogy. And if you notice his right bracer, the assassin insignia is faded and falling apart. YouTube and us as they try to hide the amount of dislikes. And Ubisoft really wanted to show off what the new engine is capable of with all the character models in one room. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed when I first saw this. Setting this game during the American Revolution is really cool to me. It's something that many of us around the world are forced to study in schools, so we all have a decent amount of knowledge of the time compared to the Renaissance or the Third Crusade. There's a certain novelty to it that never got old for me. If I'm not mistaken, that is the beautiful Shaun Dagger, the voice behind the many shanties we love in Black Flag. Ubisoft knew they had gold with their sailing, and I loved hearing him in 3, as I had never noticed him before. Okay, the PC version of this game is broken, but sometimes bugs are freaking hilarious.
Seems our esteemed guest has deigned to grace us with his presence.
Fight Club is another track that slaps harder than my father.
You think I'm afraid of you?
No, but you should be.
Hatham's confidence never comes off as cocky or boisterous, just matter of fact. Don't know why this booze is purple, but I'm gonna go with this captain really believing himself hot shit. And royalty, hence the color.
Should you ever dare to insult or threaten me again, I'll not hesitate but to cut off your head myself.
You know, with lines like these, why did I not see the Templar twist incoming?
Claudia.
There's almost no matching Assassin's Creed 2's title card, but this is about as great in a different way. AC2 is a beautiful opening surrounding that game's focus of family. This title card is grandiose, ushering in the scale of the conflict to come.
I know that on repeat playthroughs, this opening on the ship can seem small and tedious, but it works as a great metaphor for how this game was moving away from its previous Italian inspirations. Since Hatham is a European sailing to America, it feels like it parallels the direction of the franchise, pushing forward to new frontiers.
And say what you will about the game, Connor, its bugs, the long prologue, but there's no denying Lauren Boff's score is some of the best of the franchise.
Aye, William Johnson waits for us at the Green Dragon.
This Green Dragon?
A good lad, if a bit earnest.
It's kind of sad watching Charles Lee fall from grace. Meeting him now, he seems so hopeful and full of promise, to only devolve into the Lee that Connor can't seem to find.
This downfall is shown even in his character model. When first meeting Lee, he looks very well put together, but by the time he rises through the ranks and we see him again over a decade later, he looks like he's drunk on power, corrupted by the Order.
Which is why I will always argue that this prologue is 100% necessary for connecting and understand the story to its fullest.
I won't ask again.
And like, I'd understand the complaints about the prologue if Hatham wasn't so damn badass. I'm glad he got some more screen time in Rogue. I love that Hatham has his own slew of combat animations. His style has this beautiful elegance and fluidity compared to Connor's aggressive brutality. One man's fighting for control with an orderly plan, and the other is fighting for his life, and it's reflected gorgeously in their combat styles alone. Which reminds me, what happened to the passion in creating video games nowadays? I know I'm being harsh, but to create a set of unique animations for a character we play for only 2 hours isn't something common anymore. It seems now that it would be considered a waste of resources and a better move to create animations that would suit both characters.
Charles? Sir?
Hatham's propriety always at odds with the job. I know it's just kicking in a door, but some foreshadowing that Charles has got it in him even now to just burst in and ruin people's homes.
Come. I'll show you how.
It's a neat little shakeup to tutorialize this bit for the player through Hatham teaching Lee these techniques instead of the other way around.
Truly a shameful display.
Shameful display!
It most definitely was a big conversation about moving from the urban sprawl of Mediterranean cities to the smaller in comparison buildings of colonial America. Moving among the rooftops is a completely different experience and welcome challenge here in 3.
I believe I found the solution to our problem. Or rather, Odysseus has.
You think Homer thought that when he wrote the Iliad that it would still be referenced thousands of years later?
I'll see you safe. You have my word.
Aw, how cute. A word that he keeps for about 5 years. It's a little cheap that they threw assassin icons over their heads in these missions, as we already believed them assassins throughout, but I'll say it doesn't harm anything and primes us even more for the reveal. And we can blame Rebecca and the Animus for not knowing and assuming. Oh no, they killed a dog. According to Naughty Dog, that means that we're about to be conflicted about what side is right. This totally should have been a red flag that they weren't assassins. Ooh, they're gonna fall in love.
In the meantime, I'll work on having you released.
I'm sorry for the trouble.
Not your fault.
Compare this little interaction to the way Rodrigo dispatched Jacopo so ruthlessly. Assassin's Creed 3 is making a concerted effort to humanize the Templars, and I'd say it's working. The entire Kenway trilogy is about walking that line between Assassin and Templar, and who's really right, and it all started here. It's so minor you can miss it if you never try, but Haytham can't parkour in the trees. He was never raised in this environment, and having characters shown through gameplay is what video games are all about.
Why are you speaking so slow?
Sorry.
Playing against the stereotype.
A Mohawkman is likely to raise suspicions, if not muskets.
This is hardly the first time I've been amongst your people. I can handle myself.
And continuing to do so. I can't blame Haytham for falling in love with someone so fiery.
And now?
Well, now... I'm going to feed you your teeth.
Haytham could say anything, and I'd feel respected.
It'll be a while yet till they're ready, which gives us time to form a plan.
No need. We will ambush him here near the river.
Home field advantage, no? The Wright Tavern was pretty much ground zero for the start of the American Revolution, as where Concord's Minutemen assembled as Pitcairn drew near. It's a small red herring that these men are the assassins that will help the Patriots come wartime. And just a neat nod to the shot heard around the world.
Hard at work, I see.
Flirting. And though you might not consider it a win because it's kind of expected from a game set in well-recorded history such as this, but each and every historical battle has such wonderful attention to detail, such as this ambush on Braddock. From George Washington being present as a volunteer, crossing the river Monongahela, down to the Bulldog's demise here.
It does not engender peace to cut your way to resolution.
Wrong. Whether we applied the sword more liberally and more often, the world would be a better place.
Haytham is constantly straddling this line. As he enters the colonies, he's much more sympathetic to the plights of others and doesn't kill when unnecessary. But after years of only whittling away at his goals, the words of Braddock seem to take hold more. I mean, just compare this Haytham to the one we see in Rogue, and by the end of 3. Though he gets more and more ruthless, there's always this small glint of light that Shay and Connor is able to exploit, which makes his eventual downfall all the more tragic. Just like Miko at the opera, Haytham offers no solace to the dying Braddock that we've come to expect from the assassins. It'll always floor me seeing locations that we visit, or in this case, are literally at, while in the Animus.
It tells the story of Yodzizu, who came into their world and shaped it for what life might come. She had a hard journey, fraught with great loss and peril.
Depending on your opinions of the precursors, this story feels like it's chronicling the journey of either Minerva or Juno. It can really go both ways, because both their voices have been guiding humanity to prevent the next apocalypse.
I do, and to do so from now until death, whatever the cost. I do. Then we welcome you into our fold, brother.
Here is where I believe most people were like, hold up, where's the work in the dark to serve the light? And started getting very nervous.
Give me your hand.
And Ubisoft keeps us on the hook for as long as possible, having Haytham take Lee's hand to burn his ring finger to only...
You are a Templar.
And we get slapped with that awesome twist that is just so perfect for what the themes of the game is trying to achieve. Having us do Templar work, seeing how they operate, and get to know them personally roped us in, and many of us fell for the ruse of them being assassins, only to pull the rug out from under us. For one, it's just an awesome twist, but for two, it gets the player to understand and really see Templars from their perspective. If the prologue wasn't as long as it was, they wouldn't have had the time to really flesh them out. This opening is very important, so when Connor wants to work with Haytham later, we don't look at him like an idiot for trying to make it work. Furthermore, to make us question who is truly on the right side. So long are the mustache-twirling villains of Cesare and Rodrigo, and hello to some gosh darn nuance.
Wait, what?
And Desmond reacts just like so many of us did.
This twist also beautifully shows the player firsthand how similar the Assassins and Templars are in their methods. These guys are not on opposite sides of the spectrum, they're just two sides of the same coin.
I'm sick of being treated like I'm not even here. Desmond, do this. Desmond, do that. Desmond, you better figure things out because the sun is going to turn us all to ash. And I know I was really nice to you, but actually I'm just another Templar plot twist. And yes, I would like very much for you to be controlled by a magic space wizard so that you can murder me.
The modern day plot lived and died with Desmond. Without him at the center of it, there's just nothing there. It's great to finally see Desmond have some autonomy and say for once. And funnily enough, Desmond equates himself to a pawn, which is constantly sacrificed to win a game of chess. Some foreshadowing to how devout Connor becomes to the Assassin's Creed.
You look familiar. Where have I seen you before?
Because he's the baby boy over the man you simp for.
I could snap your neck, you know. A little more pressure, and pop.
For all the nuance that Hatham has, Lee is a direct foil for him. A reminder that this is what Templars can and will become when overcome with zeal. A reminder of how absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Charles Lee. Why do you ask?
So I can find you.
And I will kill you.
Always a fan of QTs you can't win. Directly plumps the player into the helplessness our character is feeling. Can we just get one story where our protagonist has a nice, happy family alive? No? That's fine. No better way to raise the stakes than kill your mother right in front of you. The tree running introduced in Assassin's Creed 3 is and was stellar. It adds a great dimension and flexibility to the parkour. But what impresses me the most about it is the painstaking work that went into creating the entirety of the frontier with climbable trees that have routes for us to traverse smoothly no matter where in the map you find yourself.
Couple this with the added fluidity of the movements, and stalking from the treetops becomes something that never ceases to make the player feel like a total badass.
Who said Connor's boring with no personality? It's a little weird that AC3 positions Native Americans' faith to be because of Ubisoft's fictional precursor race, but it wouldn't be the first time AC has done so with history, so... Using your own lore in conjunction with real-life history to lend credence to your made-up gods? I don't know, I tried, it's still weird to me. I'm not sure if it's optimization or a conscious choice to lower the frame rate during this sequence. I'm gonna go with the latter, as it enhances the dreamlike quality of this message from Juno. She releases him so he can rise up, and sorry, but that will be the first of many Hamilton references. Which explains why she had such abilities and was able to sneak up on Hatham at the right tavern. She was never an assassin, but an ally to them, which could be heard from Achilles in some deleted dialogue. This mission was titled The Boorish Man, and that could totally be attributed to both Achilles and Connor. Say what you will about AC combat being simple and button mashy, but you can't take away that Connor's tomahawk animations never get old to watch.
Even then, the combat here is by no means as button mashy as previous entries, as particular enemies need to be stunned, disarmed, or thrown before they're vulnerable, which makes sweeping through a small army a bit more complicated than before.
Spirits of yours have been harassing the assassins for centuries, ever since Ezio uncorked the bottle.
That's about all we get in reference to Ezio, and I love the restraint to not rely on him to hold this game up.
I know they've a certain allure.
Achilles is speaking for the entire fan base.
Name's Achilles.
I always wonder what comes first. Name the character and then create them, or vice versa. I imagine it's like music, where sometimes it's the lyrics first or the sounds. Achilles is just like his Greek namesake. Having played Rogue, he had one fatal flaw, which was his unshakable devotion to the Creed, and paid for it dearly. Much more interesting than an arrow through the heel, but you know what I'm saying.
Something interesting about Achilles is that he's one of the few NPCs that will not be pushed by Connor if walked into. Instead, Achilles will push you out of the way, solidifying his superiority as your mentor.
They have to die, don't they? All of them. Even my father.
That's such a cool reveal. No toying around with the expected revelation of Connor learning Hatham is his father right as he's trying to kill him. Having him know from the start and getting to work makes Connor much more capable in our eyes than seeing him have a moment of weakness over blood later.
Centuries of history condensed into a few short days.
Sounds just like what Desmond went through. I really enjoy young Connor's mannerisms. Swaying around, slight aloof if you will. His naivete shows through his direction, not just actions and dialogue.
These days, I much prefer the quiet of the countryside.
A man after my heart.
Better to be thought a Spaniard than a native. And both are better still than I.
They don't get into the throes of slavery as so much media likes to neglect out of some misplaced fear. The topic pops up periodically, more as lip service than anything, but it's something, I guess. But this more likely comes from the desire to focus on what the natives went through during this time, as they do a great deal to highlight their strife through the colonization of America. And this is a perfect time for me to express how happy I am that they positioned our protagonist for Assassin's Creed 3 as a native. They could have gone with some generic patriot or loyalist, but went the way of highlighting one of the many stains in American history with Connor. And not just for its own sake. Having him be an indigenous American is perfect for the story at the heart of this game. Connor only wants to do what he believes is right at the core levels of human values. Something that's gotten so muddied among not just assassins and Templars, but among the Patriots and Loyalists. I mean, just take a look at Achilles and Rogue. Their crusade against the Templars made them forget exactly what it was they were fighting for. So, enter Connor, stuck between these four corners of opposition, so unique in his perspective against each side that he can cut through the noise to help as unbiasedly as he can. An emphasis on he can, because at the end of the day, his people come first.
What's true and what is aren't always the same.
And that's the core of Connor's struggle throughout AC, trying to thread that needle best he can.
Connor. Yes, that will be your name.
Achilles names Radahagethon after his late son. The choice for Achilles to decide that now, so soon, eludes me. But as these two grow, it really falls into place as they become surrogate father and son to each other. In traditional Assassin's Creed fashion, we have Templars and Assassins as the core reason for these monumental moments taking place. Instead of a soldier firing out of fear and believing the command has been placed, it's Charles frickin' Lee that starts it.
Who are you? Samuel Adams, at your service.
Keeping in line with Connor not understanding this culture's way of interacting.
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
I say this as a joke all the time, and no one knows what I'm referencing, so I'm taking my one chance, goddammit.
I don't suppose lockpicking is part of your repertoire?
Ha, Connor's like,
check the out.
I promise one day to repay the favor. Like this.
Ah, he's learning. Aw, he's like, how do I look, Dad?
Where is Charles Lee?
And so the meme begins. Ubisoft knew they had gold with this sailing, hence why they were developing Black Flag at the same time as this. It's neat seeing how rudimentary the sailing feels compared to Black Flag.
Once upon a time, we had a ceremony on such occasions. But I don't think either of us are really the type for that.
See what I meant earlier? It's fair to say that as sus as the Templar ceremony was in hindsight, the couple hundreds of years definitely could and did change such things.
I can probably camouflage the van, too. But there's not much I can do for us.
That's an easy one.
Haha, perfect. Not even the modern day can avoid the ubiquitous assassin's hood. Now I love how hard they stick to the guns about the UI all being simulated by the Animus. We can only see Desmond because of the small camera, we get no counter signals or health bars. It really makes these modern day sequences feel special and illustrate that the actual assassinating is way harder than we've seen in the Animus.
These modern day segments also highlight the 3 essential skills that an assassin needs. Each mission has an abundance of parkour, then stealth, and then combat, which I felt was a nice touch.
I don't think I'm alone when I say that these are the best assassin's robes in the franchise, but my favorite detail is that Connor has some of his own mohawk effects tied to the outfit. Can I just say that grown-up Connor is a smoke show? In all seriousness, who could deny how badass Connor is?
I dare the governor to send more.
Look at that cheeky little smile from Connor.
He intends to purchase the land upon which my village stands, without the consent of my people.
It's not like Connor's voice, because it's dull or lacking emotion, is just plain ignorance of Connor's history. Noah Watts modeled his performance after Wes Studi, who is a quite famous Native American actor. His speech patterns and tone is a very realistic representation of a native slowly learning and picking up English. This coupled with the fact that natives are not even nearly as outspoken and boisterous in their everyday interactions like we're used to, we get Connor. And even beyond just the cultural reasons for his speech, we've got his actual life. He was confined his whole life to a small valley where his people lived, and now is being comparatively bombarded by so many different people and cultures. I wouldn't be as outspoken too. The peak of Connor's hood is probably as eagle-like as we've ever seen. And how cool, not even our recruits get their own Animus focus pull on the last words they deliver to their targets. Leave it to the cook to use a butcher's knife as his main weapon.
I said I'd buy you an ale when you first helped me. In place of drink, I offer you my allegiance. For what it's worth.
Assassin's Creed 3 is a huge step up from the Ezio Trilogy's recruits, who were all just randomly generated husks of people. Now, each and every Assassin's recruit has an actual character surrounding them and personal reasons to join the Creed.
We wait for the signal.
What signal?
This meeting can do nothing further to save the country.
The myth is, right after this declaration by Sam Adams, immediately following was the enactment of the Boston Tea Party, which is not quite true. It wasn't until after a while later that the party actually commences, which Ubisoft shows wonderfully with the sun being up and the dumping of the tea taking hours later at night. As ridiculous as the chances are that Connor would take place in so many pivotal moments in history, who cares, because it is awesome every time seeing these created quite faithfully to history. Quite the fuck you, am I right?
It is done.
Another neat thing with Connor's speech is that throughout the game, he never speaks with contractions.
You should have killed him.
There was no need.
This is what I love about Connor's arc throughout. His optimistic naivete being crushed under the reality of this life he leads, coupled with him trying to rewrite how the Creed operates because of his unique perspective, like I mentioned earlier. Ubisoft went through great lengths to bring the Mohawk language Kani and Kea into Assassin's Creed 3. They could have gone the route they did with previous games and just throw in a word or phrase here and there, but they didn't. There is a huge amount of respect paid here, and I can't help but appreciate it. It also really helps immerse us in Connor's world and feel closer to him.
The colonists have no quarrel with the Iroquois.
Not yet, but they will.
It's easy to make these Templars sound prophetic since we have the hindsight of, well, what actually happened. But even with that fact, it doesn't take away that there has always been a fair amount of truth every Templar speaks with their final words. I'll always appreciate the attempts to make the Assassin-Templar conflict as gray as possible, even if Ubi is still floundering to deliver us a solid piece. Rogue was a good step, but not enough, I believe. Keeping an Assassin tradition, paying your respects to the dead in your natural tongue. Johnson did actually die at a native conference, but from stroke and not Mr. Connor here. And yes, I'll keep winning these historical accuracies that they embellish upon with their fictional history because I think it's cool. Sue me. I couldn't help but laugh at the traits assigned to Johnson on this murder wall with typical Templar at the end of it. It's a stupid win, but I like that Connor throws his hood down far more often than Ezio did. Just helps get more emotion into the performance. And how can you not show off beautiful hair like that?
Where am I to go?
Mr. Revere's house in Boston. If you'd like, I can...
As abrasive as Connor is, he's a man on a mission. No need for superfluous pleasantries. Man, this man is non-stop.
You can. Allow me to...
I always appreciate when Connor shrugs off people that he doesn't know and or trust. And Paul's reaction is just like, oh, you.
You? No time for dawdling, my friend. We have lives to save.
And after showing Connor's distaste for Revere touching him, he's now writing and has to hold on to Connor.
Let everyone know that the regulars marched for Lexington and Concord.
Paul Revere famously never said the British are coming. Ubisoft owns up to that.
Prescott?
Can always appreciate a man that can multitask.
Don't fire! Unless fired upon!
Don't you mean until you see the whites of their eyes? I know he, Prescott, and even Putnam most likely never said this. Or they did. No one really knows.
Disperse, you damn rebels! Lay down your arms and disperse!
It's still contended today on which side shot first, and Ubisoft doesn't pick any favorites. I remember playing this section as a kid, and my dumbass ran the whole way and didn't grab a horse. I'll admit, though, it didn't make it much more intense. On that note, I love Connor's running animation. So long in the days of that goofy-looking splayed arms run. Figuring out how to do these large pitch battles with how the combat system works in Assassin's Creed was no easy task, I imagine. For as simple as it is, these combat encounters aren't numerous enough to shake their novelty and are a fun change to traditional gameplay. In each of these, the balance I think is perfect. You've got just enough time to keep the regulars at bay, but it's still nail-biting to watch that health bar go down. Really emphasizes the struggle of this militia versus highly trained British. Even if this particular battle at the North Bridge had the regulars outnumbered 4-1. Oof, it got much more gruesome than that, but check out that redcoat. Pierced all the way through the back, past the bayonet, to the barrel.
I beg they will accept my most cordial thanks for this distinguished testimony.
Here comes the general!
Ah, so you're the one who saved Sam and John at Lexington.
It was the Patriots who did that. I merely lent support.
Humility.
I should attend to Charles over there. He looks none too happy about being passed over for command.
First detail that Ubi didn't have the Templars siding with the British because we view them both as antagonistic forces. The Templars are playing a higher game, and this will come back in spades when Connor works with Hatham. I really like that the regulars and Patriots aren't just slotted in with Templar and Assassin, respectively. I mean, hell, Charles Lee was a major general in the Continental Army. And also, Lee wants to be in the room where it happens. I will never get over the enduring meme of the Wilhelm scream. Balls of steel amidst, balls of steel. The new engine was so impressive back in the day. It's always so interesting to look back on these games that we once thought were photoreal and see them as outdated.
Even by today's standards, this looks pretty good, and I'm glad this game, much like those before, went for a stylized realism rather than just making it as realistic as possible.
And above all else, men, do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes.
Oh, there it is.
Not because you're mad as a March hare, son.
I expect an apology on my return.
And check out the new marking system to pick Karen. Vindication feels good, I'll admit.
Or you could just admit that you are wrong.
Oh, child, please, you've killed 2 men.
I know people will point to this scene as Connor being arrogant and foolish as Achilles just checkmated that boy, but I see it as just a spat between father and son. These things happen, and the jovial music backs what the intent and how we should be feeling about this argument.
You're gonna have to try a lot harder than that to impress me.
Is that so, old man? Or perhaps we should step outside. I will gladly demonstrate how easily I could...
And listen to Watts here. Connor is brimming with personality and life in his own way. This is in no way as boisterous as Ezio could be, but comparatively to his reserved nature with the Patriots, this is awesome. And additional ammo that Connor will only open up with those he considers his people. I know much of this video has been me defending Connor and explaining away his character, but I just love him so much, so I gotta.
To murder the commander-in-chief. Yes, but I have only false starts and dead ends to show for it.
And like a light switch, Connor goes back to his stoic, monotone voice with this stranger.
Thomas Hickey's your man, and I aim to help you catch him.
And look at that. He's getting better at letting people touch him. Is my brain just small? Because I only just now noticed that Connor's dagger is just his hidden blade. Either way, that's dope as hell. I really enjoyed the constant teasing of these two meeting throughout, constantly so close to one another, but just missing. My balls are very much blue and ripe by the time Hatham jumps on him saying, "Here's Johnny!" AC3 was very dedicated to the story. This entire sequence, there really isn't a lick of gameplay to be found.
Mason Weems?
Pretty neat that Mason Weems is instrumental in having Connor escape, which in turn saves the general, whom of which wrote the first biography of George Washington, and was a supporter of the more, let's go with lavish stories surrounding the man as laid out clearly here.
George Washington is brave beyond measure, loyal like a brother, peerless in character, and unshakable in his convictions. That man is our Jupiter Conservator, destined to lead us not just to freedom, but greatness. You're serious, aren't you?
Something tells me Connor and Drax would get along.
I'll give you credit. You've given this plan to risk my life a great deal of thought.
This is one of my favorite camera moves used all the time. It's to signal when a character's thoughts have shifted to the inverse of their previous beliefs. Connor was being ungrateful and rude a moment ago, but as he comes to understanding, the camera work reflects this.
His pedigree is pathetic, his military record even more so. I could go on, but we'd be here for days, so manifold are his faults, so deficient are his merits.
There's a decent amount of truth in Lee's words here. Washington wasn't the prophetic general that carried us to free salvation. He made many mistakes and was harshly criticized for them. Granted, it all worked out in the end, but like, you know what I mean?
All those years ago, the child in the forest was you.
How cool the next time Lee recognizes him, it's only when he's got him choked up against a wall like he did when they first met.
I said I would find you.
I know he's choking, and it's probably not intentional, but the delivery somewhat sounds like a more youthful Connor, like when he first made this promise. We always play from the gameplay side of Assassins, but canonically, they are very invisible. All we hear is the shank, but no clue where it happened. Or the game glitched, because the PC version is busted, and I've handed them false credit. Oh well.
And though we have begged and pleaded with him to share what he knows, he maintains a deadly silence.
That's because Connor knows rule number 1 when locked up. Shut the fuck up. And also rule number 2. Shut the fuck up. 3's get a lawyer. Sometimes slow motion just makes everything better.
He was a scoundrel.
But still a man.
Though Hickey didn't fight for anyone but himself, Connor still respects him. I only wish all actions could be graced with such open arms after one's death.
It's also pretty interesting to see a Templar that isn't out for power, control, or any New World Order. Hickey just wants to party and have a good time, and since the Templars can provide that for him, he helps them out. It's a change of pace from a lot of the other antagonists. It's someone you wouldn't see the Assassins recruiting too, since they'd expect members to be all for the Creed.
Achilles finds fault in this, and we argue every day.
The seed was planted from the very start about Achilles' view of the Creed and Connor's, which is great because it's consistent with how hard-headed Achilles was and Rogue, and how Connor's whole journey has been seeking coalescence between all sides.
Let me tell you something, Connor. Life is not a fairy tale, and there are no happy endings.
No. Not when men like you are left in charge.
This is a quick turn of events that gets set up through a quick little monologue from Connor. I'm going to assume it came down to time restraints to really set this up better, but I'm going to appreciate what we have here because where we landed is so much more important than how we got here. Connor, through his crusade to save as many people as he can, has ironically left himself alone as everyone has constantly been telling him. Infighting is always so much more interesting than good versus evil plots because they all want the same thing. Think why in every Avengers movie they fought each other. Through this action, you could say that Connor is not throwing away his shot.
I will find church for you.
Why? What reason have you to help?
Because you're gonna need a right hand, man. I think it's cool that these two finally meet inside a church. These two, for brief moments through their work together, suffer a small crisis of faith.
Father, Connor, any last words?
And same with Hatham. He knows Connor is his son and is not wasting time on, oh my god, my son, wow.
Johnson sought to own the land, that we might keep it safe. Pitcairn aimed to encourage diplomacy, which you cocked up thoroughly enough to start a goddamn war.
And though Hatham has become more ruthless, his explanation of the Templar cause in the colonies has been the best ever to grace the Assassin's Creed franchise. Maybe it's the charisma, maybe it's his conviction, but I can't help but listen to him and want to side with the Templars. I mean, if we want to get real, if this conflict existed in real life, it seems the Templars did win, so like, it could be worse. I don't know, playing 4 Assassin's Creed games before this, believing the Assassins are right, then to have so much doubt in them before one game is over? I can only applaud writer Corey May for starting the Kenway saga on the right foot on blurring these lines so well.
While the games before Assassin's Creed 3 did blur the lines, they only did so in regards to the actions of the Templars and Assassins, while this game gets into the nitty-gritty of the actual ideologies, creating a greater, if blurrier, bigger picture.
The man's racked with uncertainty and insecurity. Only look at Valley Forge to know my words are true.
Hatham knows his stuff. Instead of pointing out a battle he may have lost, he points to his mismanagement of men. This example, I feel, is much more potent than a lost battle, as one is direct conflict between two sides, and the other is just complete bedshit independent of the enemy.
We're all better off without him.
And see, Connor has got his fist raised while Hatham is prattling, but the brown bed at Valley Forge gets him to start seeing Hatham's side and start their steps to understanding.
I can kill you now, if you prefer.
Connor's cheeky smirk at the end, it's either from respect for his candor or from a sense of, I'd like to see you try.
Go catch up with the rest of Church's men. Infiltrate that camp of theirs and see what you can discover.
What about you?
Never you mind. Just do as I ask.
Hatham right away is treating him like a parent.
It was done by a group of privileged cowards seeking only to enrich themselves. They convened in private and made a decision that would benefit them.
Sounds like Hatham also doesn't like the room where it happened.
The only difference, Connor, the only difference between myself and those you aid is that I do not feign affection.
That's quite a critique on the Founding Fathers, and I don't believe it to be a misguided one. We hold these truths to be self-evident, as all men are created equal. One look at the times of the following 100 years, and you can see the disgusting hypocrisy of that statement.
Of course you will.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like me to come along and hold your hand, perhaps? Provide kind words of encouragement? Here's my son.
Move along.
Even Connor is taken aback by this. Sure, it could be said this is just a move, but the delivery has a hint of genuine care for him.
Charles Lee is responsible for her death by your order. And you're sorry.
Another scene I point to defend against Connor as a wooden character. This could have been a moment of contemplation for Connor, and it's not. It really goes to show how much he decided to not follow the creed to a fault.
Oh, no. Don't do that. There's no way of knowing what's on the other side!
We do now.
For all Hatham's condescending bravado, you can't say that he doesn't get his hands dirty. Think of the past Templars who hid behind their armies and money.
Perhaps this is another sign of his previous assassin life, as assassins like to get their hands dirty. If it is, then that's some fantastic attention to detail.
I thought the Templars had eyes and ears everywhere.
Oh, we did. Until you started cutting them off.
Your contact said orders from above. It tells us exactly what we need to do. Track down the Loyalist commanders.
Something the Templars will never understand is working without the resources.
Well, you'd best get after him then.
You go. I will watch the prisoners.
No, you do it.
Why me?
Because I said so.
I'll never get over these interactions. Connor wanting to be treated as an equal, and then his boomer dad being like, I'm too old for this shit. It feels good to shove a guard with the same animations we've been shoved with for years.
What? And waste precious time and money on their care? What would be the point? They'd given up everything they knew.
My cold, dead heart, for all its naive optimism, is kind of on Hatham's side. It's wartime. Sometimes the ends really do justify the means.
Why do you think I keep on trying to show you the error of your way?
You have said much, yes, but you have shown me nothing.
Then we'll have to remedy that then, won't we?
Set up?
And what's this? Your good friend here has just ordered an attack on your village. Although attack might be putting it mildly.
And payoff.
How long did you sit on this information, or am I to believe you discovered it now?
Wow, Connor's sharp. I was totally fooled by Hatham was like, woo, let's go save the village with Daddy.
A warning to you both. Choose to follow me or oppose me, and I will kill you.
John Truby, in his book about screenplays, discussed four-corner opposition and how having these corners at all odds will more naturally create a more compelling story. Assassin's Creed 3 takes this one step further by placing Connor's story in the middle of the square, surrounded on all fronts, just like the native peoples. You might argue he's still one with the Brotherhood, but that allegiance is still on shaky ground. Is she calling Charles Lee boiling water? If so, I'm curious if that is in reference to the adage, place a frog in boiling water and it'll jump out. Place it in water and slowly raise the temperature to boiling, that frog will stay in and die. Lee set fire to them many years ago, but now is playing the long game with them. Or, that's not at all what she meant, I'm a silly Billy. And through everything Connor's been trying to do, he still can't catch a break. Y'all really expect someone to have been up Shit's Creek his whole life with his mouth open to be a ladies' man and suave?
Charles Lee has betrayed you. He forced retreat in the midst of battle, hoping the loss would take the lives of your men.
I still love the slant history they tell with their Creed fiction. In history, Charles Lee actually just botched this attack instead of betraying him. Either way, his forces had to retreat from Clinton's regulars.
Enjoy your victory, Commander. It will be the last I deliver you.
I mean, if you've got the track record, some arrogance can be accepted. Coming back to where it all started.
It's the 21st century and you're still running around with only a tiny knife for protection?
Well, at least Ubisoft knows how much we are suspending our disbelief in these modern-day combat encounters.
Worse ruin! You're a bastard! All your kind. Maintaining the erroneous belief that we are evil.
I guess in this modern day with the sun exploding, assassins don't have time for a little poem for dead enemies. Seeing Desmond run shit here in Abstergo makes me wonder why they haven't at least tried to spin off a completely modern-day story. I know going to the past and the Animus is Assassin's Creed DNA, but come on. This was so much fun finally get to play as Desmond and make a difference in real time.
Also, Desmond gets to use a gun. That is all.
Achilles, there is nothing more to discuss.
Achilles' illness just kind of comes out of nowhere, and those that only play the main story get sideswiped by his death. This almost seems like a death, but it's not, because we see that in the wonderful Homestead missions. So before you judge Achilles just eating it out of nowhere, play the Homestead missions. They're some of the best side content AC has ever offered and shows great insight into Connor's character.
These Homestead missions also show a smoother transition from a monotone, all-business Connor to one who shows a little more emotion. It's a shame that many won't see this transformation, as they will either skip the Homestead or just play it all at the end of the main story, but it truly is worth the time. The outfit unlocked upon completing these missions is Achilles Outfit, which is either a win for it looking a lot like Connor's early concept designs, or it's a win for wearing a dead guy's clothes.
The world turned upside down.
Connor!
Check that out. He goes to put his hands on his shoulders, but remembers and respects Connor's boundaries. I'd hope that a man that single-handedly won the revolution would get the respect he's earned.
The beacons are lit!
Don't think I have any intention of caressing your cheek and saying I was wrong.
Witty and prideful till the end.
I should have killed you long ago.
Possibly the biggest compliment that Hatham gives Connor, but it's so heartbreaking because Connor was hoping to reach out to him after all this was said and done. You might notice I sort of glossed over the final interaction between these two, and that's because Hatham just sort of resorts back to mindless Bad Templar. I was really hoping for a bit more of push and pull with this last fight, but instead it's just the tired old assassin versus Templar that we always get. But at least of the big bad Templar fights, this one has carried the most emotional weight for the player and PC than ever before.
But this does play into Hatham's character pretty well. He knows Connor isn't wavering, and he even says a pretty meta line explaining that he isn't going to just realize he was wrong and they can have a happy ending. So while a greater discussion could have been nice, it's only natural that this is what it boils down to when both sides are set in their ways.
From what I could gather, the significance behind Connor shaving his head is tradition for when a warrior is about to go to war, to lose all sanity and go into a dark place. The stripe left is to help the warrior return to peace after the deed is done. He also leaves his hood down to fully embrace his people and make this kill not just for them, but for himself.
That day, at Fort George, he feared for my safety.
And just like Connor and Achilles, it seems Lee and Hatham had a very similar father-son dynamic.
I will kill you, Connor. This I swear. Not here, though. Not today.
I'm gonna kill you. Not today. Not tomorrow. But I'm gonna kill you.
First, I'll destroy all you hold dear.
Connor just rolling his eyes wide as mercy. Doesn't give a right now.
I'll burn that homestead of yours to the ground and roast the severed heads of your precious founding fathers in its flames. And when I've finished with them, all the rest will burn as well. Your merry band of assassins, the human refuse that lives on your land, your village and its people, all of it, gone.
Then you have my permission to die.
Only then will I allow him to die.
Oh, I jumped the gun. Forgot he said it. And it also sounds like he will never be satisfied. I like this optional objective more than most. Typically, they're all just what the assassin actually did in the moment, but this one's cool because it speaks to Connor's character more than something like, don't be detected. The revolution's over. They won, and Connor has never been one to needlessly kill. Well, at least ludo-narratively speaking.
Make a sound and you die.
Well, I say that generally speaking, but right now, Connor's bloodlust is at a complete high and will do anything to get Lee.
Thank you.
Connor's funny, goddammit!
You resist. Why?
Because no one else will.
Check out their wounds. A cylindrical injury on opposite sides. Mirrored. You might even say two sides of the same coin? It's pretty on the nose, but Lee has his last drink at Last Drink Tavern. Some hate this death scene for Lee, but I think it's brilliant. Both men, so tenacious in pursuit of their goals, end their fight not in some grandiose battle like between Connor and Hatham or Ezio and Rodrigo, but in some backwater tavern in Monmouth. Connor places the blade between them and removes his hand. He's giving Lee a chance to fight back, to honor and respect him even after all he's done. And Lee reciprocates, not through giving Connor what he most likely wants, but in offering a drink to him, to which he accepts. There is no need for dialogue as everything has been set up so well for this moment and the direction is so perfect. We know exactly what they are saying with their actions and gestures. Lee even smiles at Connor as he hands him the drink to say, well fought, and accepts his fate and loss. To me, this scene is a masterclass in direction of the art of show, don't tell. And let's just get another win in for Lauren Bob's AC3 theme. Connor, instead of some final words eulogy to his final target, just gives him a very respectful head touch. Or you can look at this like, you're gonna die, and you're gonna look at me when I kill you. There's the bittersweet reveal of Connor's name. The boy only lived to 7. Lucky number 7, maybe? With Connor taking the name of and being instrumental in saving the world, I think 7 being lucky is not a stretch. As much as I wish we got more of an exploration of Connor's story, I'm glad we got this one title. Though he lost everything throughout this story, I like to believe that he finally got to rest and settle for the rest of his days.
If you've played the Homestead missions, then you know that this is actually true. While he did lose his village and his loved ones throughout his journey, the people he recruited at the Homestead have become his new family, and those are his people now.
In the beginning, when we thought we could be saved, we sought to face the sun's wrath and contain it.
Now it's time for us to all lose our collective minds and face the precursors that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. And I'm not kidding when I say lose my mind. You guys ready for this shit?
We sent a dozen of them skyward, but there was no way to maintain control.
It's really cool to find the analogs between the Assassins and Templars with the Isu. They sought to control the minds of everyone to create a safe world for them. But alas, they found it impossible to control everyone, to have everyone come to consensus. This is why the conflict between Assassin and Templar will never be resolved, as one cannot exist without the other, and on continues the feedback loop. I think Walter White put it best when he said,
It's the constant, it's the cycle, it's solution, dissolution, just over and over and over.
The question of control and free will and which should take precedence over the other will never be answered because the universe doesn't care about us. The atoms that make us up don't care if they ever understand themselves. We feel like the more control and understanding we have, the more free we will be to endeavor upon new bounds, only to possibly realize that through the Pyrrhic attempt to understand and control, we shackle ourselves. And so, what's my point with all this armchair philosophy about some video game with ancient beings that came before? It's that the universe doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about me. We will all die and the universe will continue on. So, don't think about it too hard. Or you'll sound as stupid as me and we should focus on what Connor does throughout the whole game. Our people. The only thing we know for sure is love. That feeling we share with others might possibly be the only thing we can ever understand in a universe that's so cold. And hell, we don't even understand that, so everything we do is a desperate attempt to feel loved and have meaning. My musings here are just that as well. Control, freedom, chaos, order, they're all just natural processes the universe goes through. And to deny that or try to change it is a fool's errand.
See, I'm telling you, I have the mind of a I have the mind of a mastermind. What's that? I don't know, but I'm so creative like that.
Sorry about that. Sometimes my mind just goes to a stream of consciousness about what I find interesting to discuss. I recognize that I have no authority to speak on anything, so thank you for indulging me. I also recognize the hypocrisy littered throughout all of that monologue. But that's why I love living in stories and sharing. This dumb game made by people just like us made me reflect on my own existence, and I can only see that as a win. Back to the game.
What was meant to encourage life, used instead to justify taking it. And so now you see that what was shall be again. So tell me, how is this better?
And not even the Isu are safe from the trappings of consciousness and the awareness of one's existence. We have the same Templar versus Assassin squabbles in Juno and Minerva respectively. One wants to control the natural processes of the universe and human consciousness, while the other would rather have it run its course. And that's the gambit. The question I don't think we'll ever be able to answer. Hence the endless amount of Assassin's Creed games detailing the same struggle over and over and over again. In an infinite universe, everything is destined to be repeated in some fashion, right? Ugh, this video would have been so much simpler to wrap up if the Isu didn't exist. But alas, they do, and I'm having a blast mulling over these questions.
It's already started. I need to do this now. So go. Go!
So in the end, Desmond's a Templar now? I'm kidding. I think Desmond made the right choice. The cycle would start anew and nothing would be changed, other than the billions dead. But my human hubris is kicking in now as I type because our arrogance in believing we can find a way to stop Juno is just another version of the same cycle that has been happening for eons. There is no right choice here, just the one that we can live with, or in Desmond's case, die with. I know many were disappointed with the ending, but we all know Desmond's story wasn't the main focus. These games are about the anime stories first, modern day second. Should it have been balanced more? Maybe. Did it feel a little rushed, like they were out of time and budget? Sure. But we make do with what we have. And we should accept what we get. So instead of being upset about a lackluster ending, find the good in it and just enjoy it for what it is. Is that naively optimistic and possibly harmful to the standards we should hold creators to? Probably. But look at me. Look at the channel name. We're all just trying to be happy and positive here.
While in a vacuum, this ending might not be that great, Desmond's journey throughout these games was something worth noting. He's grown from helping the assassins practically by force to eventual reluctance, and by the end of the game, he's completely on board.
You played your part well, Desmond. But now it's time that I played mine.
And you can't tell me this didn't excite you for where the modern day plot was going to go. Endless possibilities. All interesting. And then we got Black Flag's modern day. Can't win them all, I guess. Assassin's Creed 3. Love it or hate it, it was a great way to wrap up Desmond's story in my book. Left open-ended enough to give us another slew of interesting stories, if so desired by Ubisoft. And I haven't played much beyond 3, only Black Flag and Rogue, so I can't speak to how they handle things moving forward. But as a trilogy, I think it's damn great. A defining series of the late 2000s. If you want more Assassin's Creed 3 analysis, head over and check out that Boyaku's breakdown of the game. If you like this video, you'll love his. He explores more than just the main story, which I know many of you will appreciate. And I pop in there with some things I didn't mention in this video. So nice to make a new friend through this art of creation, and I hope we get together again soon, brother. Thank you for doing this video with me, and as always, my friends, drink some water, drive the speed limit, and most importantly, love one another. Peace, everybody.